And yeah, let's start. This is the agenda for today. First, we will have a short introduction to ExFlow Dimension Owners, followed by the walkthrough in Business Central. And after that, I will summarize the steps for you guys because it might be a lot of details. So I will give you a summary of the steps. And then we will go through the questions to see if you have any. So please remember to write your questions anytime in the chat during your presentation. So first, dimension owners. This is another way to build an approval framework. It is especially useful if your approval flows are based on a combination of several dimensions. So for example, if you have 200 stores and 40 regions, and there should be one responsible person per store and one per region, and so forth, it means that it can result in more than 100 approval rules, for example, for each combination. So with ExFlow Dimension Owners, you can instead solve this by setting up a single approval rule that handles all of these combinations in a dynamic way, since the approval group does not have a static members. So instead, dynamically, it fetches the approvers from the dimension owners. So today I will show you the basic settings on how to set this up so that you get an idea of how you can build your flow and then how it could look like in the import journal as well. So let me share the screen. Let's do the walkthrough. So let me share the screen. Okay, so let's say you have an approval flow built on regions or stores, and if you have a large number of approval flow combinations, you will need to create a rule for each combination, specifying the exact store, the region, and so on using the regular framework. So instead of doing that many times, you can simply focus on who the store owner is for each store and who is responsible for the region, and then you set this up using ExFlow Dimension Owners. And the dimension owners I'm using today are based on areas such as Northern Europe, Northern America, and so on. And each area has a code such as 30, 40, 50, and so forth. There are a few steps to follow in setting this up, about 4 steps to be precise, and I will show them today. So let's start with the first step, which is setting up the dimension owners. So then you go to ExFlow Dimension Owners. And here you set up all of your dimension owners. This step takes time to set up initially, but it becomes easier to administer and much clearer afterwards when you're done with this. I have already created my dimension owners here, but let's see how it looks like if you were to create them from scratch. So if you start from new, you click on new. And here you choose which dimension it applies to. And then after this, you choose a dimension value. So I will choose customer group here, for example, and then I will choose small. After this, you select an approval group. For example, the owner of this customer group. I will choose this one. And here you can also work with amounts as well. I won't add any right now. And once you have created one owner, you can easily copy all the values from that dimension to create new ones. So as you can see here in the background, I created the first one here already. So instead of creating every one or every group here manually, you can copy your dimension owners here. So if you click there and then you choose all values, and then you click OK. Then you receive this message asking if you want to create and update dimension owners. And yes, I want to do this. So I click yes. And if we go back here now, you can see that we created 3 dimension owners just by copying them. The only thing now is that in all of these 3 groups, I have the same dimension owner. So the only thing you have to change here now is to go in and change the dimension owner per group if it's different dimension owners, for example. But the positive thing here is that you only need to set up one approval group and one approval rule from now on. When you're done with this, and you will understand what I mean shortly. So let's create the approval group. You can name the group whatever you like. In my case, I name mine area because this is what I'm focusing on today. So let's open this one. So if you create one from scratch, what you need to fill out here is first the code. I filled out area here, and then the name. And the name gives you an explanation mostly for you to understand what the group approval group is called or what it's about. And after this, you fill out dynamic approval type. So you choose dimension owner here, and then you choose your dimension code. In my case, is area. And this is the only thing you need to do here. So now you're done with that. There are also other settings here as well, such as escalation and so forth, but we will only go through basics today, so you understand the flow and the basic setups. So after you create the approval group, you want to create an approval rule. So with this rule, you specify the order in which documents should go through to your approvers. So for example, it should first go to a dimension owner for one area, then to another approver, and then finally, maybe you want for a certain amount, it should go to the CFO or something like that. So with ExFlow, once you have set this up, it will choose the flow as you have defined it. So this can be controlled, for example, by interpreting references on your documents, which are then used to select the correct dimension owner, or in this case, area. And you can also trigger this manually, a flow for it, for example. But we want you to have it as easy as possible. So maybe you can then start by interpreting references. So let's go to ExFlow approval rules. And I created one here. Let's see, area. And when you create an approval rule, you fill in the code. I made it pretty simple here as well, the same as previously. So area, and then the name, area dimension owner. And then under dimension code 1 down here, you fill out dimension code 1 and you choose your dimension code here. So I chose area. And now you should choose the flow of who should approve. So here you can see that I added my dimension owner part here, the group that I created. And then after that, I want warehouse, which is another approval group to approve documents, and then the CFO if it's a document over 50,000. You can also work with other values here as well with approval rules, just as you do now with your approval rules if you want to. But as I said, let's only look at the basics today. After this, the last step is that you need to activate a setting called Always Propose New Approvers, and you do this in ExFlow Setup. Let's go there. And here under Approval, you have Always Propose New Approvers, so you enable the setting here. And what this means is that if an approver online changes from one area to another, then ExFlow will update the approval flow to approvers based on that area. So you don't need to do this manually in ExFlow and Business Central, for example. It will happen automatically. And you can control what your users can choose in the web with coding rules or denying coding rules, for example. So maybe you can say that you only want your users to be able to choose between a certain amount of areas and so on. And this is it. Now you set up the flow of ExFlow Dimension Owners. So let's go to the import journal to see how it might look like in the workflow with ExFlow Dimension Owners. So the first invoice here, we have two invoices. The first invoice here has an amount of 1,250. And we can see the approvers are Cecilia and Warehouse. On the imported lines here, you can see that I have an area code. So let's change this area code to another one just to show you that it dynamically changes, for example. So let's change it to 40. And then you can see I have another first approver there, which is Joachim instead. But you can see then that warehouse stays the same. And this is because we set up an approval rule where the first approver varies depending on the area, the dimension owner. And then after that, it's always the same in the setup that I did. So I want it to be warehouse and then finally the CFO based on the amount. So let's go here and let's look at the approval rule. And here you can see the dimension owner was first and then warehouse and the CFO. In the next invoice, we have an amount over 50,000. It's 80,000. So now you can see it's Cecilia, warehouse, and the CFO. So let's have a look at the approval rule once again, just to see. So remember, I've added that the CFO should only approve documents over this amount, which in this case then happened. You can also view the current dimension owners in both the import journal and in approval status on the line. So you can see show current dimension owners. You see it's 40. And if you click on it, you can see who's the dimension owner of that area. So that's all in Business Central. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. So let's do a little summary of these steps when you set up a dimension owner. So first, you set up the dimension owner. Don't forget to use the copy dimension owners feature to reduce your manual work. And you do this if you search for ExFlow Dimension Owners. And then after that, you create an approval group. So then you search for ExFlow approval groups. And after that, you create an approval rule. So then you search for ExFlow approval rules. And then the last setting is to enable the always propose new approvers. And this is found under ExFlow setup.